This is Xochitl Ashe. Welcome to the Pachamama School Podcast, where ancient earth wisdom meets the evolution happening right now. I am a fifth generation Quechua-Aymara medicine woman, and I've prepared an episode today that I know will give you exactly what you need, not just to survive, but to thrive during these incredible times of planetary transformation. If you're here, it's because your soul knows there's another way, a way that our ancestors have always known. And today, we are diving deep. Let's begin. Hey, just a little note. When we were recording these podcast episodes, we thought that the name of this podcast was going to be Future Proof Earth. But as we sat down with spirit, with the earth, and with some medicine, we realized the real name of this podcast is Pachamama School. So enjoy this podcast. Just wanted you to know that the podcast has a new name. Love you. Welcome. I am so happy. I just feel so much gratitude in my heart. I want to introduce you to one of my brothers. This isn't just a guest, but this is one of my bros that really consider fam. And I wanted to have Enrico on this podcast because I feel like whenever we get together, it's like we're having a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a beautiful exchange of ideas and wisdom, knowledge. You're definitely one of the people in my life who, when I need to think something through, or I need to remember like innovation and like future thinking and in a strategic way, like we can really drop in and have these like powerful conversations. Every time we have Enrico Sochi time, I find that we go into powerful conversations
Mm-hmm.
that always change me in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the introduction to Enrico and who Enrico is for me. But Enrico is a lot for the world. So I want to introduce you to Enrico as Enrico Moses. He is the founder of World Famous House Crew, a nonprofit focused on empowering Black artists within the house music scene and promoting collective economics through music, fashion, and community building. His work integrates advanced technologies and sustainable practices to uplift historically marginalized communities. Enrico is dedicated to harnessing the power of house music for social transformation and personal empowerment. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love your bio, but I feel like, man, there's just so much more that I know that you bring
Right.
to the world. I mean,
Yes.
I'm just gonna add it because I get to as your
Mm-hmm.
sister. I mean, also Enrico is a prolific coach, prolific teacher, prolific entrepreneur. Um, so I just want to say those things because these are the kind of conversations that we often have, which they intersect. Um, the world of personal development, human potential, the world of we talk about money. We talk about money a lot. This has been a conversation between me and Enrico for a long time, to a point where we played around with the idea of launching a documentary because um, we both have found that money is such a important tool that we need to learn and I don't know if the word master would be the right one in this case, but we definitely need to be proficient and have elevated knowledge about money if we are to create the world we want to create. So those are some of the conversations we also have. And as an entrepreneur, like I feel like I can come to you, and when we sit down and have beautiful conversations, we can discuss like what's going on in the world, how is the world changing, and how do we meet it as entrepreneurs. And so those have been some powerful conversations that we
Mhm.
have. But I wanted to bring you on because I'm going to bring you on for many other episodes. So I'm just letting you know.
Get used to me.
Yes, yes. So everybody get used to uh, my beautiful brother because I'm bringing him back. But I wanted to bring you in because I love acknowledging how people have touched me in a positive way.
Mm.
And maybe the word touch, maybe I should say it differently, how people have impacted me
Mm.
in a positive, potent way. And you impacted me and my work when we had a conversation when I just got back to LA. I think it was around May that I came to see you,
Mhm.
and I had just moved back from Mexico, and I had missed so much our hangouts. So I came
Mhm.
over, and we drank tea and we talked, and we you introduced me to this concept of future proof, which I had never heard about before, even though I too am an entrepreneur. Um, and I was like, wow, future proof. Okay, like break it down. Like this is a word we're using now. Like I've never heard
Mhm.
of it. It makes complete and total sense. Like
Mhm.
and at that moment I was like, why isn't this being a huge topic of conversation? Like
Mm.
why are only in certain circles are they talking about future proof?
Mhm.
And why aren't we talking about future proof in our spiritual circles, in our um you know BIPOC community circles, music
Mm.
circles? Like really, like everybody needs to be talking about, like, number one, that future proof is actually here to stay,
Mhm.
that we need to start thinking about everything we do as if it is going to be here, relevant, useful, and needed as we move on to into this unknown future,
Mhm.
this
Yes.
new era that we're already entering.
Mhm.
Um, so thank you for that, because when you
Mm.
introduced that word to me, I was blown away that um, I didn't know it, because
Mm.
I like to like be in the know.
Mhm.
And at that moment I started really looking at the world in a different way.
Mm.
um so defining future proof is, like, if you look it up, it's actually it's a word that started being used around 2019. And it's a word that's pretty new in that way. I mean, 2019 is pre-COVID, right?
Mhm.
And this word is usually used in tech circles.
Mhm.
And then it's expanded a little bit into investor and entrepreneurial, uh, ecosystems,
Mhm.
but it hasn't extended to the majority of folk yet.
Right.
So if you look up future proof in the dictionary, it's just saying that it's like applicable to technology and how we must design things to still work in the future, right? um but I really thought that that conversation was so limited, because we really need to create a future proof earth, meaning, like, how do we create thinking about the future, but in alignment with an earth that we want to create?
Mhm.
Like, it
Mm.
has to be, for me, when I heard about that word, I was like, whew, like this is a spiritual word,
Mhm.
you know, because it's a holistic word. It's not just technology. It has to include like a future proof earth. Like we must include that advancement is in harmony with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so here you are, um you know, I have appreciated your wisdom, and that's why this podcast was renamed
Mm.
Future Proof Earth.
I love it. Well, let me say it's an honor to be here with you, and the many conversations that we've had in the past. I wish they were recorded, into podcasts because they're so rich. And, your inquiry into business, into life is just always so profound to me, and your reflections and your answers and what you've discovered. And I think that's what being a creative, I think that's what entrepreneurship is all about, is how do we share resources? How do we practice things like group economics? I think about future proof in the context of the earth, and I think it is technology. Like I think the way we relate to the earth is also the way we relate to technology. How do we relate to food is connected to how we relate to technology, and some of that can either uplift the earth or tear down the earth in different ways. And I think we can look at things like vehicles and oil and electricity, and how are these things that we have come to be accustomed to, how are they either destroying the earth, or how are they creating more sustainability within the earth? And so, yeah, I think bringing future proof into uh, a more organic like thinking and a more holistic thinking beyond just technology and investment and I guess like products and services, I think is so valuable for the world. So it's really dope that you're having these conversations, thinking about these things, and pushing this out into the universe.
Thank you. And also, I want to congratulate you because you are a brand new uh, father once again.
Yes.
Once
Thank you.
again. I mean, you've been a father
Mhm.
for a while already, but this is
Mhm.
your beautiful third baby.
Yes. Yeah, we're so excited. We have Mr. Eli Moses has joined us in February 13th, and he's just a bundle of life and joy and cuteness and curiosity. And yeah, it's like I think about things like future proof, and I think about my children. I think about the world that we're all going to be leaving behind for the future generations. And I think we should all be thinking about, how can the future in ways be uh healthy for the people who are inhabiting the earth, including our kinfolks, and so I think having children, it aligns me even deeper to this conversation, because I know I will have my end, but our family will continue to be here, and their families, and hopefully for many, many generations to come. And what's really interesting when you think about that is, maybe our great, 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 great grandkids might be watching this, and our descendants and the people who are in our family. It's very rare. Like imagine if you could watch your great great grandmother have an interview on a podcast, and what she was thinking about and how she was presenting her ideas. So we live in such a different future than the present that we live in, and information and how we can learn, about ourselves. I've been really diving deep into the concept of lineage, and I think lineage is so important because it connects us to the earth. The lineage is based on earth. Every plant has a lineage, every animal has a lineage, every bird has a lineage. All us humans, we all have lineage, and this lineage is important. And this lineage creates things like culture. Culture creates things like food, music, all types of entertainment, which is very personal to us. Depending on where you live in the world, just a smell can make you feel connected to home. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
a piece of artwork, like a specific artist that you're used to seeing in your city, can make you feel at home, you know. And I think this is this is a connection to future proofing, is like the more we can understand our lineage, the more we are going to understand the culture that we connect to, because it's the culture that we connect to that creates the products and services that we all love. You know, like the food we eat, which is a product, right? Like if it's Italian food comes from a specific lineage. You know, soul food comes from a lineage. All music comes from a lineage. You know, if you look at the world and you start studying vinyl and you start picking vinyl, you're going to start learning that in different areas around the world, music sounded different in different times because they had specific instruments, and they might not have been trading with other parts of the world that had other instruments. You see what I'm saying? So like each lineage has a specific vibration, and that might be how the people were thinking, how they were dancing, how they were relating to food, how they were relating to events and parties and all types of things. And so I think there's a lot of codes in our lineage, and we have to reevaluate that because we're taught that, you know, we're all the same, you know, we're all just humans. And I think that that's coming from a toxic positive place. And I think that's going to be a part of future proofing, is us learning about lineage and having respect and paying homage to where things are coming from, and how can we celebrate while um while not exploiting. You know, I think that when we think about future proof and sustainability, there's been so much exploitation of the world, you know, the colonization of the world, colonization of ideas. And so I think that future proof AI is starting to uh decompose all that and deconstruct all of that, right? Because AI actually has all of the information. Where did this come from? Where did this music genre come from? What part of the world did this come from? And that information wasn't available to us. So it was easy before to just be like, you know, it's all good. We're all universal humans. And there was a time and a space for that. But I think where we're entering is going to be more about understanding our unique codes and why we are the way we are. You know, like I think about
Mm.
in the coaching work or personal growth work, you know, there's a lot of you have to understand your trauma. You have to understand your story. You know, our story is like human story plus our trauma, you know, our positive side, our trauma, and that's who we are. Trauma also creates our culture. You know, like the things we go through pushes us to create food and music and all types of art, right? When you think about, you know, why certain plays were written, a lot of times it's like you know, travesties, and you know, you have, it's not always just like this positive thing. So um I think that's something that I want everybody to think a little bit more deeply about, is the concept of lineage. What is your lineage? You know, are you doing the, what is it, 23 and me? It's important to understand, where do you come from, where does your family come from, who is your family of origin, and to have some reverence for that, have some reverence for where we come from. And I think we have all types of unique stories, and some of them positive, some of them negative. I think we can learn from the negative, we can learn from the positive as well.
Mm. I love that you brought that up in terms of future proving, because for me, the work of lineage is really about understanding, like, okay, where did my ancestors succeed when it was really tough,
Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, there's certain things in my lineage that are going to help me at this time.
Yes, that they've already overcome, that
Exactly.
you have the keys, you have the codes for already through your lineage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
And so, like, connecting to that, I think can help us as a humanity to become more future proof and create a
Hmm.
world where, yeah, a world we want to see versus a world that is, it just keeps getting harder and harder and harder for folks.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
how would, you know, as a father of a baby that, like, I feel like when babies are born, it's like they bring this energy of
Mm,
massive hope, right? Like love is possible here, miracles are possible here. It's just like that like veil to the spirit world is a lot more, cleared up, and you're in that energy. And so what I'm going to ask you is really about that, as people are starting to get really scared. I talk to some people sometimes, and yeah, there's like fear, like, about what's happening with the government, what's happening in the US. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of feelings of hopelessness. Um, like, as a new father, how do you show up to the world where there is all these energies, of thinking that like it's all done, like there's no good future that's gonna come
mm,
along, right? Like,
yeah,
because some people can go all the way there, right?
yeah.
I
You
don't see
know,
it like that, but like I want to know like how do you stay grounded in the knowing that, like, we're gonna make it through whatever is here is coming.
it's a good question. I think I look at it in the way of I have two options. I can either be I can be pessimistic or I can be optimistic. I think for me, rather than being so black and white about it, I try to be optimistic slash realistic, right? So I think being optimistic without being realistic is being idealistic, and I think that can get us into trouble. So then the other option would be for me to be pessimistic. Do you see what I'm saying? Which means I don't believe in maybe like a positive future or a future that's going to be uh, good for my children, right? Creating happiness and joy, and peace and freedom, all the things that I want. And so I think I believe in the personal power that we all have. I believe that if I can think of an idea and manifest that idea, that's a part of how this world will actually be. And so, I think we're all manifesting the future in real time, and for me, I want the future to look a way that is good for me, is good for my community, is good for my kids, it's good for my family. And so that's the thought that that's always in my head, right? That the future is getting better and I'm a part of building the future. And so are my children. And so it's not just about me believing it, it's not about me creating a world that's for my kids. It's also co-creating a world with my kids that they're creating a better world for other people, the way that they're thinking about things, the way they're treating their friends, the way they're treating the environment. Um, which is like which they're going to learn from me. If I can't be the example of that, me telling them that doesn't matter. What they're really going to learn is through my examples and what they're seeing from me. And so yeah, I think that's how I think about raising children. And I think, how would I say it, like I played a lot of sports growing up. And I think that you could take any sport, right? Let's go with baseball. And if I'm at bat and I'm playing baseball, and for whatever reason I might have negative beliefs about myself and the future and how I'm going to play, it's going to be really hard for me to get a good hit and to win that game. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the game is neutral. Like, the game isn't about winning and losing. The game is neutral, and the win and the loss comes based on my effort and my team's effort, which is also a reflection of like, how am I treating my team? Am I motivating them? Am I like, hitting them on the shoulder like, good job? All of that is a part of how my team plays, and I'm not in control of that, but I am a part of that. And so, yeah, I just think that the game that I want to win the game, which means the positive future, means optimistic. realistic mixed with optimism. So in order to play that game, I hold those thoughts while I'm playing the game. You know that I'm here to win. I'm here to work with my team. Um, even if we're down, so if I have a bad day, right? So that's the great thing about baseball. It's like in baseball, when you make a mistake, they put an E. You'll be like, you got an error. And that's really powerful. They're literally being like, Sochi, you messed up. We got to let everyone know. Sochi messed up at third base. She has an error, right? And that can be embarrassing, but that's also what life is. Like we're all gonna make mistakes. And the worst thing to do when you make a mistake is to try to hide your hand. And be like, I didn't make a mistake. It was really the batter's fault. He hit it too hard at me. you know, that's not it. That's not going to help you because when you go back home and you review the game and you see that error under your name, now you can take self accountability. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, how could I have caught that? And I think we're in this toxic positivity era where we just don't like to reflect on the things we do wrong, the mistakes
Mm,
we make. And I just think that it's not helpful to live life like that. If I'm gonna be in this optimistic, realistic future, then we have to take accountability to when I make mistakes. Because when I make mistakes, it hurts people. If I forget to do something, if I do something wrong, it can create pain, it can create separation, the lack of intimacy that I want to create, that I want to see in the world. So those are the ways that I look at being a father. That's how I look at I just don't identify with a future that's negative. I think also as a black man here in America, I've just seen a lot of progression personally. I've seen a lot of progression in the way that people treat me, the way that the opportunities that people that look like me have. Things are just changing a lot, and I wouldn't say that everything's better. A lot of things have gotten worse, home ownership percentages, things like that. Um, but I think that things are also getting better at the same time, and so I think we have to be realistic and we have to honor God. I have to honor God. It's like, God, you're making things better for people that look like me, so I can't just hold victim. If I think about slavery and then Jim Crow and then voting, the Civil Rights Act, and all these things that we have progressed to where we are today, and all of that is a fight. The black Americans, the foundational black Americans, none of that was given to us. The story that we've just been docile slaves and picking cotton and waiting for white people to save us is just simply not true. Millions of us have died fighting against white supremacy, and these are things that people didn't believe in. People within the black community, there were slaves that said, we're never going to get free. And then there was people who said we're never going to be able to vote. We're never going to be able to really be respected in business. I'm never going to have a job at the bank. All these things, the black community, had to even face ourselves. We had to face the naysayers within our own community that didn't believe in our own freedoms.
mm,
And so I just invite everybody to see that within themselves. It's like, if you can't see a better future, it's going to be challenging for you, and we all have to see that even if there's despair, there's a better future for everybody. And if the black community can see that, and we've gone through all types of atrocities, I believe that every community can see that.
mm. Yes, that is so powerful. Thank you for that. I think that
Mhm.
that's such a great statement and reminder for all of us that might have lost hope along the way.
Mhm.
um I really I really love you mentioning the black community, because I think about um indigenous people and how
Mhm.
like our world was completely destroyed, and here we are, here I am.
Mhm.
And um yeah, like that's that's it, like once again circling back, to what we were talking about, which was um like our lineages hold the codes to becoming future proof Earth.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. And doing that work, that lineage work, is so important for all of us. I mean, that's one of my main teachings is ancestral work.
Yes. And
Um,
I would even challenge that they destroyed our worlds. I think there's truth to destruction in our worlds, right? But the
mhm,
complete destroying, I think the way I look at it is the indigenous communities, like we are the culture, like we are the world that we're living in, where there's a subtle game that's played where it's like, people came in and they destroyed the native indigenous communities. The way I see it is, we created the new world with uh the people who are dominant culture, right? So the dominant culture right now, they couldn't have done it without us. A lot of the things that have been created in indigenous, whether it's Central America, South America, North America, like all of the culture, a lot of it comes from indigenous culture, from the way people are growing food. In North America, plenty of people, you can do the research, but the European settlements failed. The notion that Europeans came to America and just set up shop and started like thriving is actually not true. Most of the settlements that came by themselves and settled in the United States failed without indigenous help. And so what that teaches me is that they didn't come and destroy the indigenous community. They came and learned how to create the new world from us, with us. And that's why I take great pride in being American, because we helped build America side by side. The Black Americans, the Indigenous Americans, because Black Americans are actually enslaved Americans mixed with free Black Americans mixed with Indigenous Black Americans. That's what makes foundational Black Americans. It's not just slaves, because we're taught that all Black people in America came from slavery, came from Africa, but there was many dark-skinned indigenous people already in North America, and those indigenous people were reclassified as Negroes, put into slavery with the African slaves and intermixed. And so all of these stories about where we come from, and you think about things like American culture. What is American culture, right? Is it music? So if music is a part of American culture, then who created that music? It was the indigenous Black Americans that created almost every single music genre that we still like right now. Rock and roll, country, hip hop, house music, techno. All these things come from the Black community. Blues, R&B, jazz, right? And so I think that there is a narrative that like the white supremacists came and they just wiped out everybody, and then they brought their technology and then they enslaved us. And I think the real story is, indigenous people have been here in every single corner of the earth, and we have helped we have helped the Europeans in many different ways. And then you think about the inventions here in America. Foundational Black Americans have 50,000 patents, before the 1900s. And you have to just think, if Black slaves were the ones building things and they're ones using the earth and the ones creating things, who are going to really be the ones to come up with the inventions? Right? You
yes.
have to think about, like, and the same thing in South America. Like, when you're close with the earth, you know how to create things. That's why George Washington Carver created so many products out of peanuts, because he was in tune with peanuts, and he was able to understand how to create products because he was in tune. And so I think I want to empower indigenous people all around the world to know our story, to know our lineage, to know that all these great countries are built on the backs of the culture, the
Mm,
food, the dances, the survival of the white supremacists. And when I say white supremacists, I'm very clear to say, not all white people are white supremacists. Not all white people believe in the ideology of white supremacy. White supremacy is an ideology that is about unfairness, and
Yeah.
discrimination based on skin tone and race. And I know many very good-hearted white people that don't subscribe to the ideology of white supremacy, and white supremacy was the law of the land. In North America, it was codified into law. I
Hmm.
didn't make up white supremacy. The presidents talk openly about being white supremacists and the superior race. And so I would ask all of our listeners, at what year did that end? At what year did this concept of white supremacy that was codified into laws, like when did that stop here in America? Right. And
Hmm.
so through that understanding, you can understand that there wasn't ever a year where they're like, okay, we're going to stop practicing white supremacy, because white supremacy still is integrated into every single sector of our life, and a lot of that is about anti-Black racism and practicing these things in subtle ways. And there's also, it's about stifling indigenous culture, right?
Hmm.
Because a big part of modern society and Western culture understands that the colonization and the enslavement is a form of embarrassment, right? And so the more we can stifle the memory of foundational Black Americans, the more we can stifle the memory of Indigenous, which is why you see the education system being changed now, and like a retelling of history and kind of like a softening of history, because true American history, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of discrimination, and it's easier for people to kind of get away from that. But I think us, again, going back to lineage, we have to understand our lineage, um, because we've overcome these things. And I think that it's imperative that we understand the strength that it took to overcome these things, and that's what makes America great in the way that it is, as it is a melting pot, where how we can be friends and how we can meet, how we can have our social circles the way it is now, where we know anybody is welcome based on our vibration. And I think it was the foundational Black Americans here in America that fought for that, because it was definitely not white people that wanted Latinos and Asians and everybody to be mixed together. That's not the European culture. It's actually more of the Black culture, that we're the accepting ones, that we've had open arms when it comes to every culture coming to America. The history of immigrants in America is that Black people fought for the rights of Africans to come to immigrate here. We fought for the rights for Asians, for Latino Americans, because we didn't want just white Europeans immigrating to America. So if you look at the 60s and the Civil Rights Acts, we actually stood up and fought for that. When I say we, I'm talking about the Black lineage. And so, yeah, I just think it's so important to kind of just understand these things about history, because then we can start working together and be true allies. When we understand these stories, whether it's the Black community, the Latino community, the Asian community, because one thing that's very important to understand is that all these different kind of like lineages, there's a what do you call it? There's initiation into white supremacy, right? So the Italians, when they first were in America, they weren't considered white, right? The Italians, the Jews, the Irish, everybody slowly gets initiated into whiteness. And one of the things that you have to do to be initiated into whiteness is you have to practice anti-Black racism. And so you can look at the history of this country and you start seeing, I say things like the Warner Brothers, who were, Jewish brothers. They started having movies with white people in blackface, right? So they're in Hollywood. They're literally creating Hollywood. But then you have, Jewish people who've already experienced all types of discrimination now coming to America and practicing a new form of discrimination against the lower class, right? And you see this with many different groups, the Irish, the Italians, um, because at first they weren't allowed into whiteness. And so this is now happening with Latinos. This is now happening with Asians. This is also happening with Africans. But anybody can, join that. You can have Black people that are practicing anti-Black racism. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's very subtle the way that these things are kind of being infiltrated in our current society. So these are the things that I'm thinking about as far as like, how can we not live in this world of like toxic positivity, where like, here on like the west side LA, it's like, oh yeah, everybody, I just wish everybody was happy and everybody was kumbaya. And my thing is just like, I don't. I think that's bullshit. I think that there's people out there that aren't good people, and I don't feel the need to connect with everybody and to help everybody. There's child molesters, there's rapists, there's murderers, and I think that in the conscious community, we should understand that not everybody has our interest at heart, and so we should be mindful of like the energy and who we're putting energy into and who we're protecting ourselves from and protecting our children from, because we have to.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's like I was just talking to my guest right before you, and it was such a really powerful conversation. So she's been a Buddhist monk for 7 years, and then she's been teaching for 30, and she teaches from the lens of mindfulness. And um, she talked a lot about, and it was it was like conversations that I've heard in my own spiritual practices, but then I come into you know what's been happening politically, what's been happening recently, with the climate, right? Like the LA fires. And so that like makes me forget these teachings of like really, what we need to heal is like the separation from each
Mm-hmm.
other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
yet it's like you speak on like we have to be careful, right? And so I think it's both. Like I was really understanding like we have to hold both,
Yes.
like simultaneously. Like we have
Yes.
to hold that, yeah, we are currently living in the nightmare of separation. um but really the truth of who we are in our spirit is that we are all one. Before we continue with the rest of this episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this podcast. This podcast is made possible by one of our sponsors, Microdosify. Their mission is to combat the global mental health crisis one person at a time through quality psychedelic education and community. They've just launched a new program called Microdosify Spaces, a community-led support group dedicated to helping you integrate your psychedelic experiences. And best of all, they are free. To learn more or sign up, visit the show notes. If you listen until the end of this episode, you will also receive a code to take 10% off anything in their shop. Stay tuned.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like we're not all humans. Like I get it. On the
Mm-hmm.
metaphysical level, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to separate in order for us to truly connect, right? So let's give you for an example. It's like you are a woman, right? You are a
Mm-hmm.
woman with a specific lineage, right? And your lineage has been tapping into psychedelics, right? And it's something that is very profound to your family, and that you take great appreciation and care of, right? Because of where it comes from. And so I think um, for me to then look at you and be like, Sochi, I don't see a woman. I don't see this fourth generational healer. That's going to create a lack of connection between me and you. Do you see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So we
Mm-hmm.
actually do have to we have to disconnect and reconnect with ourselves. So the best thing you can do is completely delineate, right, from this global elite, we're all the same, we're all, the best thing you can do for us to connect and for us to truly align with this, we're all humans, we're all one, is for you to get into your individual state. For me to then not like make you into a generic person, but to accept you as this unique vessel, right, made by God. You see what I'm saying? That's
Mm-hmm.
when me and you can now connect. Where the same thing with you. When you look at me, some people will be like, Rico, when I see you, I don't see a black man. I just see my brother. It's like, but hey, I am a black man. And
Mm-hmm.
my upbringing is informed by me being a black man. If I was a white man, I would have a whole different experience. If I was a woman, I would have a different experience. If I was 3 feet tall, right? Or if I was
Mm-hmm.
7 feet tall, I would have a completely different experience here on this earth. And what I don't think we need to do is take that away from us. We don't have to take these attributes that God gave us. If God made me 7 feet tall, you don't have to be like, man, I don't even see that. And you're like, don't see that. Like, this is how God made me. And so I think the delineation movement is very powerful, and it's actually not about separation. It's actually about connection, because I don't think I can truly connect with you if I don't see you. I don't think you're
Mm-hmm.
going to feel truly connected to me if I got to be like, all right, you're a woman, but I don't see that. Oh, you're Mexican, I don't see that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, I just see you as a woman. I just see you as this. That's not real connection. That's shallow. And I think that's based on fear, because if I see you, now I have to acknowledge our differences. I have to acknowledge that there might have been conflict within our differences, right? And that could be as simple as like the masculine, feminine, men, women. It's like a lot of people have that problem just connecting with the masculine and feminine, because you might say, well, historically, men have done this to us. Or men will be like, historically, women have done this to men. And so, I think if we can't connect with the individuals, but also the trauma. That's what people, I think, are truly avoiding. And that's why I bring up white supremacy, because when you bring up white supremacy, people get a little bit at odds. But it's like, look, like, again, I didn't create that. I'm not here to push this thing in your face. I'm here to be honest with you. I'm here to bring up reality. Now, if that makes you uncomfortable, that's actually going to create a disconnect between us, because now you don't want to acknowledge the truth. Do you see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And if
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to have a conversation and you can't acknowledge the truth, then I don't know how to even really do that. And that's where I think
Mm-hmm.
this is where what I want to do is help the West Side LA conscious community wake up and say, look, you're not woke by just kumbayaing every day and I love you guys and I love everybody. I want to help everybody. And then it's like, that's not helping people. And I think that's where we're kind of stuck. I think that the conscious community is stuck in this like uh I don't know how to like self masturbation of how we're actually being conscious. It's like you can't be conscious and just like constantly not see somebody. Like that's not consciousness. Do you see what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
more feeding your ego and avoiding pain, avoiding
Mm-hmm.
discomfort. And I think that that's what comes up for me where things are kind of at. And I think that might be where America and the West is at in general. It's like we're trying to avoid discomfort, but that's also why you have people who are maybe don't have the best intentions are now running things because they're being more honest. And I'm not going to be political about things, but like people sense that and they sense like, hey, this person, I might not like what they're saying, but they're being honest. This group of people, I kind of like what they're saying, but they're not being honest. I know they're
Mm-hmm.
not being honest. And like I said, I'm not gonna get political, but it's like trying to present this guy who's like dead as the next president. That's not honest, and that's the thing. It's like that's why I think society rejected that because we're not dumb. You know what I mean? Like we as a society. We're not dumb people. Like we know when people are just not being authentic and they're doing this toxic positivity, and it feels good to hear that. Yeah, it feels good to be like, we care about everybody and we're going to fix all the world's problems and come to America, and if you come here, well, we got you, no problem. But the truth of that is just not true. There's no truth in that. You can't help everybody and act like there aren't going to be problems within that. You see what I'm saying? So I think that we're moving into a place where we can be more honest, and that's how we can truly help people. Because I think most of the people in this country aren't anti-immigration. For anyone to be anti-immigration as American is crazy as fuck. But I think what people really want is to figure out, like, how can this country be strong while we're bringing in new immigrants and continue to be strong together? And I think that people feel like that's broken right now, and I think that's the issue when it comes to future proofing, because America's like this worldly view of like this dream, this dream of where anything is possible. But if the people living here don't feel that anymore, then that dream must be kind of broken. And I think that we're like we're in this new era where that might be how people are feeling in the country. And I think a lot of it has to do with not ever addressing the white supremacy problems and the racist problems. And, so we're just like, we're adding new problems on top when we've never really addressed some of the foundational issues of this country.
Mm. Well, obviously we were going to bring you back, but I'm just thinking, like, what are some ways of, like, how are we needing to show up for this moment, right? Like, what are some things that you have found? Because I think you really are showing up, um, to have to be a parent right now is a huge show up for this
Hmm.
moment.
Hmm.
And so, what are, if you can think of three skills that you've really, um, can see have helped you
Mm.
uh, during this time, like to navigate these times with everything.
Mm.
Because one thing I love about you is you're brilliant. The way that you can
Mm.
see the world is quite brilliant, and it
Thank
helps
you.
me decipher it better. That's what
Mm.
I've always loved about our friendship.
Thank you. Same to
Um,
you.
yeah. And so, what are three things that, as we're closing this episode and we're bringing you back, uh, like, what are the three skills that, as as you share them, that I know that our listeners are going to gain a lot of value?
Yeah,
Um,
the first one I would say is definitely emotional intelligence. You know, I would just like briefly say my understanding of emotional intelligence in a way that helps the listeners is very basic, of just understanding your primary emotions. And so, where you have joy, fear, sadness, anger, shame, and love, right? So if you think about those six primary emotions, almost all of your emotions actually come from those emotions, right? So it's like underneath confusion might be sadness and fear, right? So it's like if you think about these sometimes a little bit more complex emotions, you can boil it down to a more simple emotion and then really question yourself, like getting used to asking yourself, like, how do I feel about this? This person just said this. It could be something as simple like someone mispronounce my name. Like, how do I feel about that? Oh, actually, I feel like it's funny. It's funny, or I feel sad because this one moment, this one guy, we have to understand, why do you feel the ways you feel, and then connecting those emotions to your needs, your human needs, right? So your need to be loved, your need to be heard, your need to be seen, right? We have all these needs, the need to feel safe, um because that's also going to inform those emotions, right? Like if someone comes up to me in a car and they kind of like get a little too close to my car, I might feel anger, right? Underneath that anger, I have a need to feel safe, that they violated, right? So the needs that we have are actually informing the emotions that is coming up for us. And the more we can understand our own needs, like I have a need to be safe. So the more I protect my need to be safe, the more I can actually protect myself from getting angry when I'm driving, right? So it's like, I think emotional intelligence is just so key. And that's just like a very basic framework that you can use. I would also suggest the book Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg is very key to that. Secondly, I would say to think strategically. I call like thinking in 3D or 4D, three dimensional, four dimensional. just thinking past your nose. You know, a lot of us, we see the nose, we see what's in front of us, and we're like instant gratification. We want to avoid pain, we want to get pleasure, pain, pleasure, and we have to think past that. We have to think two, three, four steps ahead. Um, think about, how is this going to impact you? How is this going to impact the people that you love? How is this going to impact people you don't even know, right? So you can think about your choices based on impact. Like, if I show up late to a meeting, how does that impact me? It's like, oh, now I feel like shit. I feel like I'm not accountable. I feel less powerful, right? And all this can affect like how I show up for meetings, how I feel about myself. Like, do I feel good at the end of the day, right? And all these little things start adding up. So it's really important to start thinking about things like strategically. Like, what do I want to get out of this? A great question to ask, whether it's yourself or the people you're collaborating with or working with, is like, what's the best case scenario? And you can ask yourself that all the time. Like today, what's the best case scenario for today? What's the best case scenario for this week? If I have a business meeting and someone is like suggesting a collaboration, I'll ask them, like, what's the best case scenario of this collaboration? Like, if you had a magic wand, how could this be? Like, what's the best version of what you're thinking of? So then we can reverse engineer. It's like, okay, if that's the best version of what you have in mind, here's my best version, and we can add those together. And now, is this even feasible? Can we get there rather than just like the average outcome? And so I think that's the way to think strategically. And the way I was taught that is, I used to downhill ski. I used to ski race, and I had one of my coaches would take me and he would take me down the path of the slalom, and he would have me memorize each gate, like, where is each gate placed, and then we would go to the top of the mountain, and we would visualize myself skiing the trail, right? And so this is what strategy is you want to be able to visualize the course in front of you, and then you want to be able to visualize yourself doing the course at the best case scenario. So you don't want to then visualize your course doing it slow. You want to visualize yourself at the best angles for the turns, doing it as fast as you can possibly do it. And this is how you will win the game, right? So I think strategy, you want to think about these frameworks, but you want to like project positivity and optimism on top of them. So strategy. And then third, it's like, it is connected to emotional intelligence, but I think it's more deeper than that. It's really understanding and knowing thyself, like getting to know yourself, because everything that you do, everything's a reflection of like what you know about yourself. What are you choosing to do with your life? What are you choosing to do on the day to day? Are you talented at things? Are you utilizing your talents, right? Like, I believe everybody has God-given talents, and it's our job to find those God-given talents. Are you good at communicating? Are you good at writing? Are you athletic? Are you good at like just working with people and the body? So it's like, some people, they might not be good at connecting with people, but they're really good at like just leading a yoga class, or like, what is your thing that you're good at? And because once you find that, then you can cultivate that, and you can surround yourself with other people that appreciate that, and that's where you can find value. That's where you can cultivate your own value. That's where you're going to have self-respect. That's where you're going to build self-confidence. So I just think it's very important for us to go on these self-reflective journeys, and I think that's what they call doing the work. It's like, where are you coming from? Why are you thinking that way? What traumas have you gone through in your life that are informing the way you're making your decisions? And the more you can know yourself, the more you can know your triggers, the more you can know what you are actually attracted to, so that you can ultimately manifest happiness. And yeah, hopefully that happiness is done in a sustainable way, where you can continue to build off of that.
Hmm. Thank you so much. This was so valuable.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I love the best case scenario. and working backwards. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that really gives so much clarity, especially when you're doing collaborations,
Yes.
right? Because right away it allows clear communication of, like, you know, sometimes people have a hard time communicating their needs,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
so you think that you are like best case scenario, and then little did you know that they were unhappy the
Right.
whole time, and then it's like they, you know, later on down the line they blow up and you're like, what happened, right?
Right.
And
And
it's
that,
because, yeah, it's
I was gonna
because
say,
we didn't
that's
have that
knowing yourself.
conversation.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
sometimes we don't know ourselves, and that's, we don't know ourselves, so then we don't even know the landmines of like what's gonna happen. Like you said, it's like, oh, I felt
Hmm.
like I was overworked, but I didn't know I was gonna even feel that way, right? And so I think part of the collaboration is even like helping people understand their needs when sometimes they might not even understand their needs, and trying to take it less personally and try to
Hmm.
help support, like, what are your needs here, what's missing, and then you can understand, like, when you see someone being emotional, you should just think like, okay, they have some needs that are missing. What is missing right now, rather than just getting caught up in their emotions or your emotions, either one.
Hmm. Thank you so much. Such like super valuable skills as we are in this moment on earth.
Mm,
As I see us, I love that too, like, thank you so much for, I would call it like being a vision keeper.
mm,
Like, you are an optimist realist, like you said, but you're keeping the vision of a world that is going to be beautiful and it's going to
mm,
work for your children, your grandchildren. So I'm there with you envisioning this world. Thanks for being a
mm.
part of this conversation, Enrico.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's an honor, truly, Sochi.
Yeah, and we're going to have you back. So thanks everybody for being a part of this potent conversation. And as always, the prayer is that you receive exactly what you needed as you heard these shares, that this may be medicine for you in some very valuable way. Thank you,
Mm,
everybody.
Ashe, thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed this episode, the best way to support the Pachamama School podcast is to subscribe, leave us a review, or share it with a loved one. To stay connected with our community and learn about upcoming ceremonies, gatherings, and earth wisdom teachings, visit the show notes and sign up for our newsletter at xochitlashe.com. As a special gift to our podcast listeners, you can download my free ebook, Bridging Worlds, Indigenous Wisdom for Microdosing Mushrooms, where you'll learn to integrate Indigenous wisdom into your microdosing practice. Once again, I'd love to thank our sponsor, Microdosify. Listeners can take 10% off anything in their shop. Just enter the code SACRED. Thank you so much for walking this path with me today. And may your life be filled with Pachamama's blessings, medicine, and magic.